So to start off Sprint 4, we have to look back at what I did in Sprint 3. Sprint 3, I worked on fixing all of the navigation issues that my project was having, making it very easy for the user to flow through all the different branches of the application without having to repeatedly close the application to get to a new section of it. So for this sprint, when we look through my project sprints, you can see that I've kind of not been following the sprints as they're listed, so I had to pick the parts from previous sprints that didn't get accomplished and work on that. So even though in Sprint 4 it says that I'll be finishing the design and the rotating list of recommended meals, I had to do that as well as do this part from Sprint 1 and 2, which was finish the design of the rotating list of recommended exercises. So those were the two big parts that I had to accomplish during this sprint, which has me all the way up to date on my sprints to this point. So Sprint 5 will be working on the tracking interfaces for both the exercise portion of the application and the diet portion of the application. Right now, all you can do is type in the exercise fields, but it's not saved to persistent data. I don't have persistent data on the rotating list of recommended exercises or meals because I didn't feel it was necessary. The idea is that every time you open up the application, you'll get a new list of exercises or meals. So saving the data would really be pointless if the goal is to get a new one every time. So for this sprint, first I had to create, I went with 12 exercises and 12 meals as a starting point. I had to fill in information about the exercises and meals. So this was, for exercises, it was exercise name, the muscle types, or the muscle parts, the muscle groups in the body that the exercises use, and the recommended starting weight. And for the meals, it was the meal name, meal types, that's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and then estimated calories. And then I created array lists of all these, and I just kind of put these together through a random number, as you'll see when I go through the code walkthrough of how I did it. So I think that it is time to start on the user-facing demo. So we'll switch here. Whenever you start the application, you can still see it's the same training or diets. There are two main branches to the application. When we go into training, the portion I worked on is this one right here, exercises. So when a user clicks on it, there is a list of 4 randomly generated exercises for the user to look at. So this time he got bench press, deadlift, leg press, and pull-ups. And then it tells the user what muscle groups he'll use, the recommended starting weight, as I said, through the project sprints. So say the user sees this, he goes back again to the home page, clicks on diet, clicks on meals. Now he sees a list of meals. For this time, it's oatmeal and blueberries as breakfast, turkey breast and rice for dinner, fish and potatoes as lunch or dinner, and then yogurt and granola as breakfast or lunch. And then it also gives the user a rough estimate of calories that the meal will be providing him or her. Obviously, calories is subject to how much the user eats, but this is just a base point. So now say user closes out of this application. The next time that they open up the application, there's going to be a different list of exercises and meals. So we're going to go to training here, exercises. This time the user got shoulder press, row, curl, and dip. Alright, so obviously these are different from the last ones, gives them different starting weights, shows them the muscle groups. And the idea is that every time the user opens it, they'll get a different list of exercises, and you'll see how I organize the exercises and meals later. So now we're going to go back again to the diet portion, diet tracking. Oops, not diet tracking, my bad. We're going to go meals. And now, see, this was actually the same. So I guess this, when you open it up, you got the same list. If we go back, we can try one more time. Oops. So this time the user got chicken salad, tuna sandwich, hard-boiled eggs, and chicken quesadilla. So you can kind of see the point. Every time user opens up the list, they're going to get a new grouping of exercises and meals, and the user doesn't even have to close out of the application. As I said, if we go back again to the exercises, it changes every time. Alright, so that's just kind of, and then we can go back to the meals. So you guys get the point. Alright, so from here, users can quit out of any screen that they want to. This is true for, I guess I'll demonstrate, for the exercise portion as well. And quit. And that's just a nice way for the users to quit, so they don't have to go to the same spot to quit. And I also try to be consistent with where I kept the quit buttons. It's in the middle of the screen for the user every time. So now we can move on to the code walkthrough. For this sprint, I had to create 4 new classes and then edit 2 pre-existing classes. So we'll start with the classes that I had to create. These are exercise, exercise wrapper, meal, and meal wrapper. So we're going to go into exercise here. So this is pretty simple. It's just creating the attributes of the exercise: string name, string muscle group, double weight, and weight's the recommended weight, and then creating your getters and setters. And then when we move over into the exercise wrapper, you'll see what I do with all that. So for the exercise wrapper, this is where the bulk of the code came. Well, part of the code came for the randomly generated list. So right now there are 5 possible lists that a user could get whenever they open up their exercise list. And here are the 12 different exercises that will populate those lists. So when we see here, generate RNG1, it just basically, I'm going down the list over and over again and filling up with differently. And then here is how I get the random exercise list. So it's just math.random 1 to 5, and this is what gives the user the exercise list that they end up with. And so the class that I had to edit here to make the list appear was exercise list UI control, and this is the portion that I had to do. It's the set info portion, and I also had to make it so the exercise list UI control was initializable so that I could set the info on opening. And so this is, first it calls the exercise wrapper that I have to get random exercises, so that's the method I just showed you. Then it's doing going through collections, observable exercises, yada yada yada. And then here's where it sets. So the exercise name column, we have to go into exercise, which is set here, and then just get name. And it's the same thing for group column, exercise, and then just get muscle group. And then this, I had to do double the string because it's a double, and the list produces a string. So now I'll move on to meal, and it's a lot of the same. We just have the basic getters and setters and the meal attributes, and then meal wrapper. Again, there's 12 meals. This time I listed them as numbers because it's just simpler. Still have our generate RNGs, and the get random meals method is essentially identical to the get random exercise method. And then when we go on to meal list UI control, it's the same thing as the get exercise list UI control. First, we had to make it so it implements initializable. Obviously, we have our fxml attribute names. This allows us to do the set info function, where we can call the meals to get the name, meal type, and calories. Again, we have a double the string method here so that we can convert the double to a string to appear in the table. And then finally, on our initializable, we have this.setInfo, which just calls the method above, so that whenever the button is pressed, the table populates. So that about wraps up sprint 4. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys for sprint 5.